to allow humanitarian aid to enter the Gaza Strip by land, air and sea in accordance with international law, it said in a statement. The Israeli military said new inspection routes have been opened up in the occupied West Bank through the Takumiya and Baitunia crossing points. However, supplies coming through the West Bank have been disrupted by attacks carried out by Israeli settlers protesting against sending aid into Gaza. Israeli government split over the war in Gaza broke open this week after the defense minister publicly demanded a clear strategy from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as troops return to battle Hamas fighters in areas thought to have been cleared months ago. The comment from Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, who said he would not agree to setting up a military government in the enclave, reflects growing unease in the security establishment at the lack of direction from Netanyahu over who will be left to run Gaza when the fighting stops. They also brought out the sharp split between the two centrist former army generals in the cabinet, Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, who both backed Gallant's call, and the hard-right nationalist religious parties led by the Islamist movement. Netanyahu has not articulated any clear strategic goal for the end of the campaign, which has killed some 35,000 Palestinians and left Israel increasingly isolated internationally. However, backed by Ben Gvir and Smotrich, both close to the West Bank settler movement, he has rejected any involvement in running post-war Gaza by the Palestinian Authority, set up under the Oslo Interim Peace Accords 3 decades ago and generally seen internationally as the most legitimate Palestinian governing body. Netanyahu, struggling to hold his increasingly fractious coalition together, has so far struck to pledge his total victory over Hamas. Afterwards, Gaza could be run by a non-Hamas civilian administration with an Israeli military responsibility. Overall military responsibility, he said in an interview. Israeli officials have said that Palestinian clan leaders or other civil society figures may be recruited to fill the void, but there has been no evidence that any such leaders able or willing to replace Hamas have been identified, and no friendly Arab countries have stepped forward to help. From Israel, the options are either they end the war and they withdraw, or they establish, for all intents and purposes, a military government there. And they control the entire territory for who knows how long, because once they leave an area, Hamas will reappear, said Yossi Meckelberg, an associate fellow with the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House, after South Africa asked judges to order its halt to operation. As disputes between states has concluded that this gives South Africa a right to make the case. In the past rulings, the court has rejected Israel's demand to dismiss the case and ordered Israel to prevent acts of genocide against the Palestinians, while stopping short of ordering it to halt the assault. Ahead of Israel's a dozen pro-Israeli protesters gathered outside, displaying photographs of hostages taken by Hamas fighters on October 7 and demanding their release. The South African legal team, which sets out its case for fresh emergency measures the previous day, framed the Israeli military operation as part of a genocidal plan aimed at bringing about the destruction of the Palestinian people. Israeli settlers attacked and burned a truck in the occupied overnight on Thursday, wounding the driver, the Israeli military said, days after 8 trucks heading towards the Gaza Strip were ransacked by protesters. Troops who arrived to separate the settlers from the Israeli driver were attacked and 3 soldiers were slightly hurt, the military said. It was reported that the protesters believed the truck was carrying aid supplies to Gaza. It said the military said the truck was not carrying aid. Vietnam forfeited at least $2.5 billion in foreign aid over the last 3 years and may lose another $1 billion because of administrative paralysis, the United Nations, the World Bank and Western donors told the government in a letter. The previously unreported figures from the unpublished document dated March 6 highlight frustration among foreign investors over regulatory hurdles and lengthy approval procedures that have caused prolonged deadlocks as the communist-ruled country is gripped by an escalating anti-corruption campaign and political turbulence. Approximately $1 billion in development funding is awaiting an additional $2.5 billion returned, effectively signaling potential losses worth nearly 1% of the country's gross domestic product. The expired funding could delay much-needed projects such as infrastructure upgrades, and donors stressed in the letter that much more may have been lost in additional funds that have been deterred by the protracted approval processes. Two senior foreign officials interviewed by press directly linked to the other diplomats and officials in recent months. The anti-graft drive has created a sort of paralysis in which bureaucrats, even its own, having failed to invest about $19 billion. Its military did not specify the latest type of weapon, but the North state media has reported that its military has been testing multiple launch rocket systems that are being upgraded. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un viewed the testing of 600mm super-large multiple rocket launchers and 240mm multiple launch rockets in recent weeks and also visited production facilities, state media reported. Tensions on the Korean peninsula have increased since the North last year scrapped a 2018 pact aimed at de-escalating tensions near the military border drawn up under a truce ending the 1950-53 Korean War, and then labeled the South enemy number one. Earlier on Friday, the powerful sister of North Korea's leader, Kim Yo-jong, said its tactical weapons were intended solely as a deterrent against South Korean military aggression, while again denying that Pyongyang was exporting the weapons. U.S. and South Korean officials have accused the North of shipping weapons to Russia to help Moscow replenish stocks for use in its war against Ukraine. Moscow and Pyongyang have denied the accusation. Friday's missile launches come at the same time as a visit by Russian President Vladimir Putin to the Chinese northeastern city of Harbin. Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping criticized Washington and its allies on Thursday for what the leaders called intimidation in the military sphere against stealth fighters, conducted intense joint exercises on Thursday in the central region to test and enhance offensive and defensive maneuverability. Hong Kong will allow mainland China's pilot digital currency to be used in shops in the city, the head of its de facto central bank said on Friday, marking a step forward for Beijing's effort to internationalize the yuan amid rising geopolitical tensions. The program, backed by Beijing, will allow mainland Chinese and Hong Kong residents to open digital yuan wallets via a mobile app developed by China's central bank and will permit them to make payments in retail shops and some online stores in Hong Kong and in mainland China. Transactions using eCNY predominantly for domestic retail payment wallets opened. According to the latest disclosure from China's central bank, using the wallets, users can make payments at over 10 million merchants in 17 provinces and cities in the mainland. Each wallet used in the city will be subject to a balance limit of 10,000 yuan, with single transactions and daily payments capped at 2,000 yuan and 5,000 yuan respectively, officials from the Hong Kong Monetary Authority said. Peer-to-peer transfers will not be allowed at the moment, according to the HKMA. By expanding the eCNY pilot in Hong Kong, users may now top up their wallets anytime, anywhere, without having to open a mainland bank account, thereby facilitating merchant payments in the mainland by Hong Kong residents, HKMA Chief Eddie Yu said. Currently, users of other digital yuan wallets, such as those operated by Ant Group and Tencent, can make payments in the city. 40 caretaker senators on Friday petitioned Thailand's constitutional court to dismiss Prime Minister Srettha Thavisin over a cabinet appointment which they say breaches the constitution. The senators object to the appointment of Pichit Triban, a former lawyer, as minister to Srettha's office last month during a cabinet reshuffle. Pichit was jailed for 6 months in 2008 for contempt of court after an alleged attempt to bribe court officials with 2 million baht hidden in a paper grocery bag. His law license was suspended for 5 years by the Lawyers' Council of Thailand after the incident. The senators said they were seeking a court ruling on whether Pichit has the integrity and ethical standards required by the Constitution to hold a ministerial position and whether Srettha had breached the law by making the appointment. Pichit is not qualified to be a minister, but the Prime Minister still nominated him for the position. Senator Derek Reed Jane Crontham said. The Prime Minister's action may therefore breach ethical standards as well, he said. Government critics say Pichot was appointed to the cabinet due to his close relationship with the client, ex-premier Thaksin Shinawatra, who returned to Thailand last year after 15 years in exile. Thaksin still wields considerably political influence over the government. Government spokesman Chai Macharonke dismissed the senator's accusation and said the government had carefully vetted Pichot's qualification. Our legal teams insist that the appointment is lawful and there is no problem with his qualification, Chai said. The 40 senators whose term ended earlier this month but who remain as caretakers until a new selection process is completed in July are part of an appointed upper house of parliament introduced by the military when it changed Thailand's constitution after a 2014 coup. Last year, the same senators closed ranks with military-backed parties to block the anti-establishment Move Forward party from forming a government. Sherpas recovered the body of a Mongolian climber from Mount Everest after they were looking for another mountaineer missing since the weekend, officials said on Friday. It marked the first confirmed death on Everest of the current climbing season. The two Mongolians set off last week from their final camp at 8,000 meters to head for the summit of the world's tallest mountain in Nepal. They were attempting the summit approach from the South Col Pemba Sherpa, the 8K expedition company that provided support services to the Mongolians up to their base camp, said. Rescuers recovered one body below the south summit at about 8,600 meters. Details of his death were unclear, he said. Rescuers are looking for many other Sherpas. He uses his first name only. Bad weather and high winds hampered any search for the missing climbers below the summit, known because of dangerously low oxygen levels. Mount Everest is the world's tallest summit at 8,849 meters, and officials say more than 6,500 people have reached its peak, many of them multiple times since the mountain was first scaled by New Zealander Sir Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay in 1953. A Nepali guide reached the peak for a record 29 times on Sunday. However, about 335 people have also died on the mountain, hiking officials said. Mountain climbing is a key source of revenue and employment in Nepal, home to 8 of the world's 14 tallest peaks. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break.
Get ready as Morrison Communications Limited proudly presents Children's Day Celebration 2024.
Arts. La Small Hotel and Resorts, number 9, Room Calagbo off Waterlines, Pastor, Port Hackett. On Saturday, May 25th, starting at 8 a.m. Inter-school march past competition,
Dance competition, drama competition. Parents, teachers and children alike, don't miss out on the fun with Uncle Clown bouncing castle as we cut the Children's Day cake. Admission is just 2,000 Naira per child. For participation and sponsorship opportunities, call us now 0806 673 8689
and 0810 634 1777.
This event is proudly sponsored by the Last Mall Hotel and Resort with Atlantic Television Network and 99.5 Wish FM Port Hackett, Lesuka Event Center, Gate Place Hotel, 8 Ball Hotel and Lounge, Oma Studio, Osgia Table Water. Remember that every child is unique. See you there. This event is managed by Pace Expressions Arts.
Special guest appearance, Hilda Dokubo, Children's Day Celebration 2024.
From the lines across across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains. Through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honourable
You human trafficker.
Honourable
You're a human trafficker.
They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what's the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
From the lines across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on-the-spot news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.
As he left the synagogue, a ruined city official said. The fire had been brought under control, the official said. The synagogue suffered significant damage, including to its furniture, but no one was harmed, Rouen Mayor Nicolas Rosignol said, adding that the nomadic town was battered and shocked. An armed man somehow climbed up the synagogue and threw an object, a sort of a Molotov cocktail, into the main praying room, Mayor Rosignol told reporters. Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico remains in intensive care, the government said on Friday, 2 days after he was shot dead as he was shot at close range in an assassination attempt that stunned the small Central European nation and drew international condemnation. Earlier, local media reported that Slovak doctors would meet on Monday to assess whether Bratislava, off the central city of Banska Bystrica, where he is being treated. In its short statement, the government said further information on Fico's health would be made public when the situation allows. The hospital did not respond to requests for comment. Slovakia's president-elect Peter Pellegrini, a close ally of the Prime Minister, paid a brief visit to the hospital on Thursday and said Fico had been able to speak a little. Slovakian police have charged a man with attempted murder. Local news media say he is a 71-year-old former security guard at the shopping mall and the author of 3 collections of poetry. There has been no official confirmation of his identity. Police have conducted an hours-long search of the suspect's home in the central town of Levice, with him present, according to press. He was wearing a bulletproof vest and helmet and carried a plastic bag and other items. Armed police, also wearing bulletproof vests, patrolled outside his home. The shooting was the first major assassination attempt on a European political leader for more than 20 years and has drawn international condemnation. Political analysts and lawmakers say it has exposed an increasingly febrile and polarized political climate both in Slovakia and across Europe. President Vladimir Putin said on Friday that Russian forces advancing in Ukraine's Kharkiv region were creating a buffer zone to protect Russian border regions, but said capturing the city of Kharkiv was not part of Russia's current plan. Putin, who made the comments at a news conference during a state visit to China, said Russia's recent thrust into the Kharkiv region was a response to Ukrainian shelling of Russian border regions such as Belgorod. As for what is happening in the Kharkiv direction, this is also their fault because they shelled and continue, unfortunately, to shell residential neighborhoods in the border areas, including Belgorod, said Putin. Civilians are dying there. It is obvious that they are shooting directly at the city center, at residential areas, and I said publicly that if this continues, we will be forced to create a security zone, a buffer zone. That is what we are doing. When asked if Russian forces plan to take control of nearby Kharkiv, Ukraine's second biggest city, Putin said, as for Kharkiv, there are no such plans as of today. Some of Donald Trump's allies are assembling proposals to curtail the Justice Department's independence and turn the nation's top law enforcement body into an attack dog for conservative causes, 9 people involved in the effort said. If successful, the overhaul could represent one of the most consequential actions of a second Trump presidency, given the Justice Department's role in protecting democratic institutions and upholding the rule of law. It would also mark a dramatic departure from the department's mission statement, which identifies independence and impartiality as core values. Trump, who has been indicted on dozens of criminal charges by the Justice Department, has vowed on the campaign trail to overhaul the agency if he wins the presidential election on November 5th and pledged to use it to pursue his own opponents, including Democratic President Joe Biden. The plan is essentially twofold, according to the 9 people interviewed by press, some of whom requested anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. First, flood the Justice Department with stalwart conservatives unlikely to say no to controversial orders from the White House. Second, restructure the department so key decisions are concentrated in the hands of administration loyalists rather than career bureaucrats. The FBI, which many Republicans see as biased, said them would have new constraints on its authority, with many of its responsibilities shifted to other law enforcement agencies, those people said. Trump feels that the DOJ has institutional problems, said Steve Bannon, a prominent Trump ally who was prosecuted by the Justice Department and convicted for contempt of Congress. It is not just personnel. You need to purge the DOJ, but you also need to reform it. Overhauling the Justice Department would allow the Trump administration to pursue conservative policy initiatives such as dismantling hiring programs meant to boost diversity in the workplace and ending federal oversight of police departments accused of racist practices. In response to questions, the Trump campaign pointed to a December statement from co-campaign managers Susie Wiles and Chris LaCivita. Unless the message coming down from President Trump or an authorized member campaign team, no aspect of future presidential staffing or policy announcements should be deemed official, they said. The campaign itself has few full-time policy staffers. Trump and his team are in frequent contact with outside groups, such as those formulating recommendations on the Justice Department. With Trump holding a lead in most swing states likely to decide November's election, the former president's advisors may have a shot at putting their ideas into practice. Trump's promise to remodel the Justice Department has been well documented, but less attention has been given to identifying the specific measures his advisors are advocating. Two prominent Trump allies said they supported eliminating the FBI General Counsel, an office that enraged Republicans during Trump's 2017 to 2021 term for its role in approving an inquiry into contacts between his 2016 campaign and Russian officials. The General Counsel provides legal advice to FBI employees regarding ongoing probes and other matters. Closing it would force the Bureau to receive legal guidance from people closer to Trump's Attorney General in the chain of command and limits the FBI's ability to conduct investigations without close political oversight, according to several Trump supporters and legal professionals with knowledge of the department's workings. Biden campaign spokesperson Amar Musa said in a statement that Trump and his allies were putting Trump's own revenge and retribution ahead of what is best for America. The FBI did not immediately respond to a request for comment. After the arrest of pro-Palestine students, protesters occupying a Columbia University building last month, New York Mayor Eric Adams and senior police officials repeatedly said there were no injuries, no violent clashes, and minimal force used. But at least 9 of the 46 protesters arrested inside the barricaded Hamilton Hall on April 30th sustained injuries beyond minor scrapes and bruises. According to medical records, photographs shared by protesters, and interviews, the documented injuries included a fractured eye socket, concussions, an ankle sprain, cuts and injured wrists and hands from tight plastic flexicuffs. All of the 46 protesters arrested inside Hamilton were charged with third-degree trespass, a misdemeanor. The arrest came after Columbia President Minouche Shafik, a hotly debated decision, called in police hours into the occupation at the epicenter of a student protest movement that has spread to campuses around the world. Other university officials across the country also have called in police to quell pro-Palestinian and anti-Israel protest camps. Details of the protesters' injuries and accounts with the mayor's office, New York Police and Columbia was shared. None disputed the injuries. The mayor's office and the police said officers acted professionally. At least 3 injured protesters arrested inside Hamilton were taken by police to hospitals that night while still in custody, time-stamped hospital records show. Other protesters who were demanding Columbia divest from arms makers and other companies that support Israel's government had their injuries documented by volunteer doctors who provide support to people arrested by police and met them outside moments after their release from custody on May 2nd. Some then sought medical attention at clinics. I was slammed downwards to the ground, and when I turned my head to see if there were any comrades who need assistance, an officer kicked me in the eye and I went straight down. And there was that buzzing and sharp ringing in the ears, said Christopher Holmes, a 25-year-old graduate student at the Columbia Affiliate College Union Theological Seminary. Moments later, an officer slammed the left side of his forehead into the floor of Hamilton Hall, Holmes said. His eye, still swollen, thunderstorm raked the Gulf Coast city in the southeast Texas, the state's most populous urban center, with winds howling at 80 to 100 miles per hour. He urged members of the public to stay indoors and to especially avoid the heavily hit downtown area, which he said was left darkened and strewn with broken glass. The message right now is to stay home, he said, adding that public schools would be closed on Friday and that local authorities were asking all non-essential workers. The mayor said at least 4 storm-related fatalities had been confirmed, mostly from fallen trees. Over 800,000 families are without power right now, he added. Whitmer delivered similar initial storm assessments during a brief televised news conference carried live a short time after his interview. The mayor said the severe weather had been marking the Nakba, an Arabic phrase meaning the catastrophe that refers to the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians around the time of the establishment of Israel in 1948. Speaking to SBS and Capital Brief, Payne accused Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza and questioned how many deaths would prompt Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to declare enough before she concluded using the phrase. The Israeli government maintains that its military operations are a legitimate response to the mass attacks and has dismissed allegations it is committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza as false and outrageous. Payman's comments drew 2 days of criticism, including a bipartisan Senate motion condemning the phrase and coalition senators linking its use to the support of terrorism. Payman broke her silence on Friday evening in a statement responding to claims made by the peak national body for the Australian Jewish community. The chant was anti-Semitic, saying it called for the destruction of Israel and the ethnic cleansing of Jewish population. On Wednesday, the co-chief executive of the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, Alex Rifchin, said the chant was an old Arab supremacist slogan calling for the destruction of Israel and the ethnic cleansing of its Jewish population. Rifchin said Payman should immediately apologize for stoking hatred in such a vile way and reconsider her position if she can't refrain from using racist slogans at a time of extreme tensions in our society. Payman said the peak body needed to understand the implications of calling the chant anti-Semitic, referring the founding charter of the ruling Israeli Likud Party, which said between the sea and the Jordan River there will only be Israeli sovereignty. That sovereignty has come at an actual extreme loss of Palestinian lives and the destruction of any peaceful protest, she told press in a statement. The slogan of the dispossessed from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is not a call for the annihilation of Jews. Rather, it is an ascent a desire for Palestinians to leaving their homeland as free and equal citizens, neither dominated nor being dominated over. The Labour senator said it would be wrong for all criticisms of the policies of Israel to be labeled as anti-Semitic, despite those criticisms coming from Israelis or Jews themselves. Like crimes being investigated by the accused, it is a moral absurdity, Payman said. Palestinian authorities report that 35,000 people have been killed in Gaza since Israel began its military response to Hamas's 7 October attack, when about 1,200 people were killed and about 250 taken hostage. The criticism continued on Friday with opposition leader Peter Dutton calling for Payman to be booted from her seat on the Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee and sacked from the Labour Party. I don't understand why the Prime Minister doesn't sack the senator, and the sooner the better, Dutton said. The Science Minister, Ed Husick, supported Payman's right to express her concern, saying it takes a lot of guts to go out on an issue as tough as this as the first-time Member of Parliament. Husick, however, she said she shouldn't have used the phrase. Fatima chose to use that. I wouldn't have done it, and I don't think she should have, he said. A spokesperson pointed to comments made by Albanese on Thursday where he said he hadn't yet spoken to the Senator. The Prime Minister has said the phrase is not appropriate. International news for today. Before we go, another look at the major stories. Africa. South Africa urges UN's top court halt Israel's offensive. Gaza aid trucks move through temporary built US pier. Asia. China's pilot digital currency to be used in shops. Europe. Slovakia's Prime Minister in intensive care shot multiple times. United States. Trump's allies assembles proposals to curtail ICJ's independence. Australia, Labour Senator Fatima rejects claims anti-Semitic political phrase. I am Valentina Lawrence. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on all our social media platforms: X Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube Atlantic Television Network, TikTok Atlantic TV Network 1, or you can watch us live on our website atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.